Welcome to another conversation in our Cybersecurity Career Intelligence series. I'm Fred Scholl. I'm the director of the Cybersecurity Master's Degree Program at Quinnipiac. And each week we are talking to an expert who can shed some light in what's going on in cybersecurity careers. And this week I'm very happy to have Deidre Diamond. She is the president of CyberSN. Welcome, Deidre.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Fred.
And CyberSN is one of the leading firms in matching cybersecurity professionals to cybersecurity needs out in industry. They've been doing this for a number of years. They have offices around the country. Deidre is the founder and CEO of the company. And we're gonna have a conversation about what kinds of opportunities are out there. How do you get your foot in the door if you're new, and how do you kind of move through a career path? But I met Deidre a few months ago. I was very impressed with their analytic capability to define what jobs are out there. There's hundreds of thousands of security jobs out there. How do you break them down into the actual needs of the marketplace? So if you're interested in moving into the field or a student interested in moving into the field, what do you use for a map to figure this whole field out? So, Deidre, do you want to talk a little more about CyberSN, or how did you get into decide that you needed to create this roadmap for cybersecurity jobs, which I think you have done?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I founded CyberSN a little over 5 years ago, I came from a long history of IT and software staffing for 13 years, and then went into Rapid7, which is a public cybersecurity software company, vulnerability management, SIM products now. And worked for the founders of those two companies for 21 years before I founded CyberSN. And when I founded CyberSN, it hit me in the face very quickly that our cost of sale was 10 times higher than I had experienced in software and IT. And the reason is that our ability to make a match was really hindered in that the industry didn't have a common language down. And cybersecurity really isn't just a technology, it's a business, and it's vast. And so it was at that point that I realized in order to have really talented recruiters, it wasn't just that I needed to teach them all disciplines of cybersecurity, because it's really not possible. Instead, I needed to build them technology that got the heavy lifting out of the way when it comes to search and match, so that they could really focus on the conversation of selling the organization that they've been hired to find talent for, and sell them on the opportunity and the story and the job, instead of spending all their time on searching and matching and screening, and only to get it wrong a lot of the times. As you can see here on my website, where I published the 35 job categories, for instance, just to look at let's say a security engineer, if you will. If we click right here, you can see that just as a security engineer, there's 4 different subtitles. And so a lot of companies, would give us a job description on the security engineer, and they're cutting and pasting it from somebody else's website. And lo and behold, if we've got about a 20% chance of getting the right person just based on these job descriptions. And so that's why I built this technology, was to really change our cost of sale. And that ultimately translates into being able to perform for our clients and not waste people's time. And so it's been technology we've been working with here for over 3 years, and now we've made public to the international markets so that firms can staff for themselves if they have a recruiting department available.
So Deidre, did you come up with these categories and subcategories based on requests from firms that engage you to find people? I guess I have a 2-part question. And then the second part is, how do you keep it updated as the market is changing, and are you updating these categories on a regular basis?
I am. We started with 29. We're at 35. So 3 years ago was 29. I have a security team that has a research component to them. They are the folks that, besides myself, made this product come true. So my chief security officer comes from 20 2 years of government contracting black ops CISO work, you know, hands-on as well as legal and everything else. He's one of the purple unicorns, and his team, they've been with me for almost 4 years now. And so beyond the mind maps and the creating the roles and such, they also, their team keeps it updated. And that's through feedback from the platform, feedback from clients, as well as just being proactive.
So let's say you're somebody, so if I understand this right, someone who's seeking a position in security would apply under your talent seekers button there, so anonymously submit.
Yeah.
And then a business that is interested in looking for somebody to fill one of these 35 roles, they would sign up through your services.
That's right.
For here. So let's say you are
That's
somebody
right.
looking for a position. Well, why don't you tell us a little more about the portal? So since we're
Yeah. So here I went to show you what a covert profile looks like. And the reason why we made these profiles covert is that we want folks to be able to keep their profile published at all times. No one really knows when a layoff is coming, or when a buyout or a merger or a move or something that causes an individual to want to job search. And so it's better to have had, you know, your profile public in a way that people can contact you about jobs passively than to wait till the urgent moment. So what we did is we said, hey, I don't need to know your race or your religion or your age or your ethnicity to make a match. I need to know what you've been doing for the last 5 years. I need to know what kind of money bracket you're in. I need to know a radius of where you're located. I need to know your citizenship status. I need to know your degree status and your cert status, because some companies make a degree or a cert an absolute must-have, or a citizenship an absolute must-have. And so we don't want to waste people's time. And so with that information, and that same information from a company, we make our matches on the back end. And so having a profile that what we call covert up always, and such that employers can engage a professional, is super important. At the same time, if I'm a professional and I've decided I need to job search, I can go to the No More platform and I can search jobs and I can engage employers as well.
So quite a few of the students in our master's degree program, and obviously a lot of people out there, are not in the security field. It looks like
that's right.
Resumes are people already who have significant experience. Can you go
right.
back to your 35 categories maybe for a second?
Yes.
So just pick one of those technical categories. What suggestions do you, like security engineer or analyst, what suggestions do you have for people who want to, maybe they have experience but not a long resume in this field? Thoughts on how they can get their foot in the door?
Yeah, absolutely. So the number one challenge for our graduates are that they don't have experience, which is notoriously a problem for the education system, right? And so the best roles where people are hiring entry level without experience, or in employment, are security analysts. And as one can see, there's 5 different types of security analysts, and my recommendation is always to research what these 5 are as a professional, and decide which one you're most interested, or at least be aware of what they all are, so that one can interview well for a company. Because again, they're going to be interviewing for a SOC analyst, and it's like, okay, well, what kind of SOC analyst? And it could be all of these in one. So the SOC analyst is still, an entry-level role. I would encourage people to also recognize that the government is one of the easiest ways to get into entry-level roles. So usajobs.gov is a great place. So because the government was the first to secure networks, because the government invented networks, they are the first to create entry-level programs. Corporate America is way behind in succession planning and entry-level programs. And so other than the Fortune 100, it's extremely rare to find an opportunity for an entry-level person because of this. And so I recommend to people all the time, if you can get in through the government, USA.gov is a great place, or usajobs.gov. And then security analysts, penetration testers, another great way to get in, and particularly in corporate America, because there's a lot of, pen testing going on, vulnerability management going on. And so what I recommend to entry-level folks is get involved in a community project. There's all kinds of capture the flag programs that you can do online today. You don't have to physically go anywhere. There's a lot of them that take entry-level people as well. And so, getting in through penetration testing is another way. And the great thing about getting in it through penetration testing or through being an analyst is that you really can get exposed to the broadness and the vastness of cybersecurity and all the different disciplines that it, reaches to. But any online projects, contests that can be put on the resume is really what people are looking for, because they're looking for this passion, as everybody calls it, for security. And if one isn't willing to get involved in community projects, then they view that as not very passionate.
Yeah, excellent. That's a really good point. So, so if you mentioned like usajobs.gov and government, do you also feel that working through government contractors is another way to kind of get your foot in the door?
Yeah.
A lot of this seems to be outsourced, right, from what I see. So. Yeah, government contractors, they all have the programs that can actually absorb the training. I also recommend that go to all local meetups. There are so many security meetups, right? That happen monthly. You can find them on meetups.com. You've got ISC Squared, ISACA, ISSA, OWASP. Then you've got the not-for-profits that are doing things for minorities, both ethnicity minorities as well as gender minorities. We've got ICMCP.org, which is the International Consortium for Minority Professionals, really focused on people of color. My own organization, brainbabe.org, is focused on bringing women in cybersecurity. We just had an event at the Federal Bank Reserve San Francisco last Friday. We had 250 women that are interested in cybersecurity come, get free training all day from subject matter experts that are female and gender not specific, if you will. And so there's others like Cyber Jitsu or women in security and privacy, equal respect. So there's groups that have meetups locally in almost all geographies. There's no way that you couldn't find at least a couple of these in any city. And really, those are people that are super committed to the community, and therefore they will help entry-level people find work. I think
as well.
Yeah, so not only help find work, but it also helps the entry-level people figure out what they want to do, right? By talking to all these other people. That's right. Having conversation, being in getting the experience of talking about themselves and kind of interviewing, if you will. Absolutely. Yep. So can we shift gears for a minute? Let's go over to this right-hand column where you have, I think, the leadership. Yeah, so how would you, let's say, what do you need to go through your non-technical and technical before you move over to a leader? What are some of the get into the different leadership roles? Yeah, well, it's interesting because cybersecurity is such a new discipline that if you ask most people in cybersecurity how they got into it, everybody's sort of got this story of different backgrounds. Of course, there's the traditional computer science and coming up that way, but we've got tons of chief information security officers that come from a music background or a history background or what have you. There's also, much like myself, I'm a founder and a CEO, and I have lots of technologists that work for me, and yet I've never written a line of code. And so my goal in really putting this out here is to say that should you be interested in leadership, one doesn't have to come up through the technical path. It certainly isn't a bad thing to do, and yet it isn't the only way. Really, it's the EQ skills that get you these leadership roles. It's really the number one focus in the marketplace right now is emotional intelligence. We've seen all the studies from all the major universities that have proven that the cost
of leadership that doesn't have strong EQ is significant. Those that do have strong EQ are producing at a higher level because teams are staying together longer with less conflict. And really, we're in the service industry, even though everything is, based on technology. We really have moved into a service economy, and that's servicing teams, servicing each other. So, to become a chief information security officer, there are plenty that aren't technical. There's plenty that are technical. Same thing with, a CEO and a founder. The other roles, a security director or compliance and risk, security product manager, those roles are still at some level, you're an SME on a real hands-on, understanding of that particular, role. So, for instance, if I'm a director of security, I'm probably going to need to be somewhat technical because I'm really directing the daily operations. And same thing with a compliance or risk manager. I'm going to need to be an SME on compliance and risk, whereas a chief information security officer could be an SME in compliance and risk and not on security operations, if you will.
Yeah, interesting. So I'm just looking at what's on the screen there right now. So I could see multiple paths. So I could see somebody going from security sales account manager over to security manager or security project project manager.
Yes.
You could see what else. So it looks like you would go, maybe you could go.
Like I went from here, right? I went from sales vice president. Right, into CEO and then founder. And so, and coming up through sales is now we're seeing a lot more of that, because people are mixing tech and sales together a lot. So there's a lot of, can start in any one of these, quote, non-technical or technical roles and still find ourselves over here to the right in leadership for sure. And this is why it's so important that, the first move, I believe, before somebody picks a role is to get a 360-degree view of all the different jobs that are out there and available. And so I tell the students, go research these titles. What are these people doing? Soon I'll have all the content here, but really understand what's the day in the life of this job. Right. Like for instance, incident response. If you're going to choose incident response, you're going to live a life that most likely is 24/7. Is that what you want? Is that okay for you? Sort of understanding what that means before we choose is, in terms of lifestyle, is really important.
Yeah, very good. So just to wind up, Deidre, are there sort of thoughts? Thoughts for a Monday afternoon as to what steps people especially trying to get into the field, any immediate action items? You mentioned a bunch of things. What would you say they have to do in order to facilitate that? Yeah,
I would say they have to network. They can't rely. They have to network and they have to get involved in projects. Offer themselves for free. Offer themselves to shadow. Yeah. Find somebody at these events or somebody and ask them if you can shadow them on projects. You can put that on your resume too. So anything that one can do to get some exposure or experience to real life work is absolutely critical. And I think those meetups are one of the best ways to meet people that really are community oriented and willing to help.
No, absolutely. I think that's great advice for everybody. And thank you very much for Deidre for taking your time to share all your wisdom on career intelligence. And thank you all for listening and watching, and join in again next week where we'll provide more career intelligence. Till then, have a great afternoon.